We're going to get started here with some programming. So thank you to Forrest Stoke for the music you just heard. Woo! And thank you for coming out to the Pacific Northwest Climate Week. This event has been coordinated and is being hosted by Kulshan Carbon Trust. Yay! My name is Carrie Brausieck. I'm the Executive Director of Kulshan Carbon Trust, and I'm going to be the MC for today. I want to give you a little bit of an intro to our musician here today. Forrest Stoke is the solo project of Zach Hammer. And Zach is a multi-instrumentalist and songwriter with a focus in folks and blues. Zach has spent the last decade traveling the entire country, playing shows with the band Kawinka. Zach is also the owner and operator of Lazy H Farms outside of Mount Vernon. It's an organic, family-run farm that produces blueberries and apples, and also raises pigs, ducks, and alpacas. They have camping, they have farm tours, so a great place to check out. So thanks again to Forrest Stokes for our music. Sorry, notes are blowing around in the wind. Okay, our theme today is rooted in resilience. We are offering this space today to spend time together to build a resilient community that will be able to face the challenges of the coming decades. We offer this space today to bring together neighbors, organizations, and change makers to connect with one another, to offer opportunity for community-led conversations, and to inspire local climate action that's rooted to place. The event today is about listening. It's about speaking up. It's about sharing knowledge and asking questions. It's also about having some fun and enjoying this beautiful environment of Boulevard Park. Each organizational table that you see here today has some fun activities to engage you, so make sure to go around. Oh, thank you. Yay! Make sure to go around and see what activities each organization has for you to do. Just a little bit of housekeeping. Bathrooms are located by Woods Coffee. Make sure that any trash that you might have or that's generated today is deposited in the appropriate trash bins that you see along the road or other places throughout the park. There are some programs about the day at the KCT table right over here. So feel free to pick up a program. And we are going to start with 3 presentations around 2 themes. The first theme is bioregionalism. What is bioregionalism? It's a place-based focus on community solutions. And the second theme is nature-based solutions. After these presentations, we will have a space behind the stage for community conversations. So if you've heard one of the speakers and they have piqued your interest, if you have questions, if you would like to engage them more, we will have time for that behind the stage after that round of presentations. And we will have Forrest back on stage to play some more music. After that, we will have a second round of presentations around the themes of state policy and how to get involved locally. And then after those presentations, we will have a second round of community conversations where you can engage those speakers as well. So that's what we've got. We're going to get busy here, and I'm going to introduce our first speaker, Howard Sharfstein. Howard is the co-founder and the president of Kulshan Carbon Trust. He has enjoyed a career in environmental law, energy projects, and corporate sustainability that has spanned 5 decades. He is now on the path of spiritual eldering. He is a champion for nature-based climate solutions and harnessing the power of intergenerational collaboration. So welcome, Howard.
It's wonderful to gather outdoors at this special public park on Bellingham Bay in the Sailor Sea. My name's Howard, and I'm honored to speak on behalf of Kulshan Carbon Trust, or KCT for short. We are a local nonprofit based in the bioregion surrounding Mount Baker, which the Coast Salish people call Kulshan. Hence, Kulshan is our first name. Our service area includes Whatcom, Skagit, Snohomish, San Juan, and Island counties. We took carbon as our middle name, not as a pollutant, but as the fundamental element of life. Our challenge isn't just about reducing emissions, it's about repairing the broken relationship our economy has with the land, air, water, and really all living things. We're committed to restoring regenerative natural climate solutions for a healthy carbon cycle that flows through thriving ecosystems. At KCT, we believe that addressing the climate crisis is much more than reducing carbon. It's about trust. That word trust is in our name, and it's how we strive to operate. We believe trust is an essential element for regeneration and resilience. Not just as a noun, but a verb, something KCT aspires to practice, build, and embody trust. We are now 4 years old. To reflect our experience in the changing environment, our board recently updated our vision, mission, and guiding principles, and for the next few minutes I'll describe what that looks like in our work. KCT brings together people from diverse backgrounds: farmers, landholders, scientists, students, local business people, and professionals. We gather together to implement natural climate solutions that restore landscapes, sequester carbon, and build a circular economy. And our mission is to be a catalyst for community-led collaborations that empower land stewards to implement regenerative solutions such as biochar that restore ecosystems, will draw down carbon, and build resilience throughout our bioregion. Regeneration surpasses sustainability, which aims to cause less harm. Regeneration focuses on doing more good. It's about healing and enhancing, making things better than we found them, soils richer, communities stronger, and futures more hopeful. Our program today is called Rooted in Resilience. What do we mean by resilience? It's more than just responding to climate disruption. It involves taking preventative measures and a proactive approach to living on the land. For example, KCT supports local initiatives that thoughtfully address wildfire risk. We initiated the Community Biochar Program as a smart way to reduce hazardous wildfire fuel and improve soil health. We focus on increasing soil carbon to help our forests, fields, and waterways withstand droughts and floods. Our role is to encourage efforts throughout our communities so that we become accustomed to working together to prepare for the daunting challenge of melting glaciers. We recognize that regeneration and resilience rely on reciprocity. Reciprocity means giving back, not just taking. It involves caring for our lands, waters, and each other, rather than looking to extract profits. It raises the question, what does this ecosystem need to survive during these changing times? In human terms, reciprocity is about valuing relationships more than transactions. That brings us to another core value, stewardship, which means responsibility, not as owners of the land, but as caretakers. It means listening to indigenous wisdom and respecting the original stewards of this land by finding ways to follow their example with humility and gratitude. Mostly it means leaving a living legacy for generations to come. As we gather under the theme Rooted in Resilience, I invite you to reflect and discuss in our community conversation. What does it mean to be regenerative? What does it look like for your community to become resilient? And how can we trust each other enough to collaborate for a better future? At Kulshan Carbon Trust, we work every day to answer these questions on farms, in forests, and through alliances that respect science and storytelling, ecosystems, and economies. We invite you to join us, not just as supporters, but as co-stewards in this vital work. Thanks everyone for showing up. Thank you for caring, and thank you for putting your trust in a future that is regenerative, resilient, and rooted right here in the Kulshan bioregion on the Sailor Sea.
Our next speaker is Brian Kirkfleet. Brian is a regenerative farmer, artist, and co-founder of Inspiration Farm, an eclectic 9-acre permaculture homestead and creative hub just outside of Bellingham. Blending art, ecology, and community, Brian has cultivated a space where hands-on learning, collaboration, and imagination flourish. With a background in glass blowing, ceramics, and sustainable design, he brings a unique fusion of creativity and land stewardship to everything he does. At Inspiration Farm, Brian hosts workshops and events that empower others to explore permaculture principles, regenerative farming, and resilient living, all in a setting that inspires connection, curiosity, and collective growth. Welcome Brian to the stage. And as Brian is coming up, I'm going to make one quick announcement. On the programs that you can find at the KCT table, there's a QR code on the back with an activity. And what you do is you click on that QR code, and it's got questions that you can ask at each of the tables. When you've answered all those questions, you will be put into a raffle and for a drawing for a very cool prize at the end. All right, welcome Brian.
All right, thanks, Carrie. First of all, I just wanted to thank Howard and Carrie and Kulshan Carbon Trust for hosting this event. I think it's a shame more people aren't here to take advantage of it, but we'll get the word out regardless. Normally I just speak off the cuff, but I had so many ideas I really wanted to share. I wrote it down, so just bear with me as we go through this. I also want to acknowledge that we're on Coast Salish land and honor their stewardship of this area for generations and hope that we can follow in those footsteps to the best of our ability. My topic is on water and water in its relationship to climate. So what is water? Water is life, right? Water is the lubricant and the building block for all carbon life forms. Without water, all carbon life would perish. If we want to draw down carbon, we need a living ecosystem with adequate water to grow and thrive. Water governs 95% of the Earth's heat dynamics. And we cannot understand or address global warming without understanding the water cycle. Humans have removed half of the Earth's green matter, and in doing so, we've replaced forests and grasslands and wetlands with deserts. Managing water cycles gives individuals plenty to do locally, so you have agency to take control over change. We can now mow less and grow more. We can plant trees and cut down fewer. We can grow gardens and buy our food from regenerative farmers that absorb carbon instead of releasing it. All of this draws down CO2 and cools our local climate and brings in the rain, mitigating floods, fires, and droughts. Water is at the heart of all disastrous climate change events because water is out of balance within our modern context. Ice caps have melted. We've pumped out more water out of fossil aquifers, and there's more water in the atmosphere flowing around than previously held in the grounds and in living biomass. This water in the atmosphere has caused dramatic changes in our weather patterns. We've treated water with a disregard, used it as a dumping ground, and exploited it for its resources and harnessed it to create power. We shunt it away when it's a problem through pipes, culverts, concrete jungles. We straighten rivers and build dams and levees. We commoditize it and monetize it when it benefits the few. This is disrespectful. Water is the most responsible element determining climate. Water drives climate dynamics 85 to 95%. Carbon only affects climate 5 to 10%. Why are we focused on carbon? Water has been left out of the climate dialogue because it's too hard to model and to draw conclusions. So it's been ignored. Fires, floods, droughts, and extreme weather patterns like hurricanes are all a result of water out of sync with the natural balance of living systems. Just think, it takes heat energy for water to go through each phase change. Each time it changes from a solid to a liquid or a liquid to a gas, it takes energy. This process typically cools the planet. Think of it, when you are hot, you sweat. That sweating is evaporative cooling, and that cools you. The planet's biosphere does the same thing. We need to rebuild our relationship with water in our built environment. Create city sponges, let the rivers run free, restore the wetlands, rebuild living soils, preserve and increase forest cover so that water is cool and clean and persistently flowing out of the mountains. Let's make all biomass thrive again to create a cooling effect on the planet. Join the slow water movement. Understanding small water cycles is critical to this thinking. Mist, fog, dew, transpiration and condensation, and humidity are all part of the small water cycle. This is the same water that can move around a given area dozens of times, being used over and over again if the conditions are right, if the cycling of this water also cools and nurtures all life. Increased organic matter and living plant tissue encourages the small water cycle to thrive. Holding water in the soil is key to a healthier small water cycle. So let's treat our soil and living biomass with respect. Tilling is killing. Grow more, cut less. Just 1% increase of organic matter in the soil can store an additional 27,000 gallons of water per acre. This is the water that is the source for the small water cycle. By recognizing the benefits of the small water cycle, we can encourage things that help it thrive. Rain gardens, living roofs, forests, pervious surfaces, infiltration of water into soil whenever possible, and maintaining green cover as extensively as possible. In closing, working with water gives us all the agency and ability to affect change. We all have a relationship with water in our daily lives and local communities, much more so than we have over carbon emissions. Come, let's talk together and learn more. I encourage you to support a project of Regenerate Cascadia, and we have a table right over here. We're doing a series of events that are called Walk Whatcom Water, and we're going to deal with all these issues at different locations throughout Whatcom County. Do I have a little more time? I wrote a very short poem, and I'm not I'm not a poet at all, but some of this stuff just came out in verse and prose, so indulge me once again. Water is life. Water is glue. Carbon is a building block of all life too. Water knows how to create a resilient world. Do you? Save the trees, feel the breeze, slowly infiltrating rain to sustain all life. Stop the tilling, killing, build soil, and soil to feed us all. Soil and soul to feed us all. Here in the great north wet, we tend not to fret, and yet we see the change. Fires, floods, droughts, all sides of the same coin. It's time to stop destroying. Natural systems balance the climate. There is no denying it. By planting the rain, life can sustain. To pull us back from the brink, we must think and act succinct. Our hearts, our hands know what to do. We just need to follow through. Do you want to live? Find out what you have to give. What would our ancestors do? And you? Rebuild a relationship with water and let her steer the ship. Water is life. Water is love. Treat her with respect.
All right. Our next speaker and last speaker for this round is David McLeod. David is a lifelong Whatcom County resident and a longtime advocate for local resilience and sustainability. He co-founded Transition Whatcom, one of the first official transition initiatives in the U.S., and serves on the Bellingham and Whatcom County Energy Resource Scarcity Task Force. David facilitates community workshops on climate preparedness, permaculture, and relocalization, and edits the Sustainable Bellingham Community Newsletter. His work centers on building local capacity through education, collaboration, and reskilling. So let's welcome David to the stage.
Thank you. It's good to see all of you here. It's an important time in our community. As the introduction said, I've been involved in community efforts for quite a while, since the early 2000s, with Sustainable Bellingham and Transition Whatcom. And in 2023, in October, we organized an event here in Bellingham where we brought Joe Brewer, his partner Penny Heipel, and a group of others that are part of what they call the Bioregional Activation Tour. And Joe Brewer spoke at Bellingham Unitarian Fellowship, and he talked about why we need to reorganize, why it's so important at this time now to be really digging our heels in. And Joe also wrote a book called The Design Pathway for Regenerating Earth. And in his presentation and in the book, he identified the 9 planetary boundaries that were put out by the Stockholm Resilience Center. So climate change is just one of 9 planetary boundaries. And the Stockholm Resilience Center has determined that we've already crossed the safe operating space of 6 of those planetary boundaries. And I'm not going to go into all of those. There is a graph at our table, the second table over, that shows those planetary boundaries, and it shows which ones have been crossed. We've crossed 6 of the 9 planetary boundaries. And so that becomes the North Star of our project of Earth regeneration and bioregionalism. In the June issue of Whatcom Watch, the local environmental paper, I wrote a story that ended up on the cover. So you can look it up at whatcomwatch.org and find this article called Why Regenerate Whatcom? And I'm just going to read a little excerpt from that paper right now for you. So we have our North Star, an objective to do the work necessary to get all 9 planetary boundary dynamics back within the safe operating space on the innermost circle. As Brewer puts it, this framework is like a destination toward which we can direct the ship of our hearts and minds so that we might arrive at the soul of Earth regeneration. What does Earth regeneration mean? Well, here's how Joe Brewer describes it. Regeneration is what living systems do as they work to balance and integrate the dynamic patterns in their environment in order to maintain coherence and to thrive. It is also a concept we can use to guide our efforts to achieve sustainable outcomes in our environmental practices. Regeneration for the Earth is about restoring and maintaining planetary health as we integrate our actions, scaling up local efforts and connecting to global efforts across all systems with a shared sensibility of what is needed to sustain the entire planet. This work of Earth regeneration, it includes addressing climate change and the 9 planetary boundaries, but it also includes cultural evolution and the principles for creating regenerative economies. Because in order to make the scale of change that's needed, we're going to have to dig deep and address all of the ways that we operate within our culture. So rather than accepting our current economic structures as just the way things are, we need to reimagine these constructs and incorporate what we know about other domains such as energy and ecology, and seek to integrate them to develop truly regenerative economics. Now, of high importance is the need to work on regeneration at territorial scales. These are regenerative projects. There are regenerative projects happening across the globe and in our various communities, as we see represented here today. Brewer points out that what is lacking is the capacity to achieve regeneration at whole system scales. At the level of functional landscapes, where we live, we can see the structured ecological flows that are organized around rivers, mountains, and coastal estuaries. These are structured ecological flows that are in dynamic patterns that create and maintain conditions for entire global systems, entire ecosystems to thrive. So as Brewer said, we must organize our efforts around the functional landscapes of real-world ecosystems to achieve the emergent capacities of sustainability at territorial scales. So this brings us to the topic of bioregionalism. A bioregion is a geographical terrain that is the ecological scale that a life system has adapted to in terms of its attributes. Human settlements in biocultural regions have given rise to ideas on how best to live in these places. So bioregionalism, according to the Regenerate Cascadia website, it means living indigenous to place, based around watersheds rather than arbitrary lines on a map. So in a recent Facebook post, Joe Brewer emphasized that the long history of this way of living, he said it's very important to name that bioregionalism is a relatively new word for a very old way of being. All sustainable indigenous cultures throughout human history have been organized in harmony with their local ecology. So the long history of bioregionalism is that biological species co-evolve with their living ecosystems and their landscapes. Living bioregionally is the future for humanity if we don't go extinct. So what is envisioned? What is envisioned for Regenerate Cascadia and our new group that's forming, Regenerate Whatcom, is a network of regenerative bioregions. The basic idea is to weave together regenerative economies built around functional landscapes that are being restored to safe levels of the planetary boundaries in order to safeguard humanity's future, moving toward that North Star of planetary health. So we live in the Cascadia bioregion. It's sometimes been defined as the Cascade Mountains of Oregon, Washington, and British Columbia. But it can be seen as even on a larger scale than that, from South Alaska down to Northern California and over to parts of Idaho and even Wyoming, where the Snake River goes into the Columbia and comes through the coast of Washington and Oregon and out to the Pacific Ocean. The Cascadia bioregion represents more than a geographical region, however. It's an area that shapes a distinct culture, ecology, and a sense of place. So this is part of what we want to be involved in, is mapping our bioregion and telling stories of our place and working to regenerate. So Regenerate Whatcom is still in its early days. We have a sign-up sheet on the second table over there if you'd like to get involved. Like I said, there's the Whatcom Watch article you can find, the June issue called Why Regenerate Whatcom. You can do a search online on YouTube to find Joe Brewer's presentation that he gave in Bellingham in 2023. Search under Bellingham. I think it's under Regenerate Bellingham and Whatcom. And it was in October of 2023, so you can see that video. Regenerate Whatcom is a working title. We may eventually change that, but that's what we're going with for now. The potential activities for our group. We want to promote empowered participation, to get citizens involved, and help us to organize and do practical projects. We want to encourage pro-social behavior. How do we work together? We've got to learn new ways of doing that. We want to create that story of place and undertake this idea of bioregional mapping. We want to engage in integrated landscape management. These are permaculture principles applied to our region. There's the idea of developing a bioregional learning center where we can educate each other and learn what we need to learn to do this work, and to teach the principles for regenerative economics, to support and promote collaborative projects with other groups, and to do that process of weaving together with citizens in our community, with other groups and individuals and elected officials. And then lastly, to activate flow funding to get the resources needed to do this work. There's a whole process underway to do that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, David. So that concludes the first portion of our presentations. We are now going to have a session which we're calling Community Conversations. So behind the stage, we have an area set up where you can engage and talk to the speakers you just heard, ask them questions, have conversation, think of solutions around some of the problems they presented. And just to plant some seeds, some questions that came up for me while listening to these folks. What does it mean to take regenerative local climate action? What does it look like for your community to become resilient? What does water have to do with climate change? Fire, floods, droughts, hurricanes. What does water have to do with the carbon cycle? What is that small water cycle and how does it cool the planet? So think of some things, think of some ways, some questions, some ideas, some thoughts you have for these speakers, and take some time to meet behind the stage. We're also going to have Forrest Stoke come on back up and play some more music and give folks time to engage with our vendors and all of that. So enjoy. And in about 30 minutes, we will have another round of presentations.
She
man poor, shopping at the dollar store. Shopping for his wife while she's working all night. Got 3 kids getting ready for more. He's hanging on. He's hanging on. He's barely hanging on. When a wall couldn't take the cannonball, ran from the line, hoping to find Alabama or Mexico. Hanging on. I'm hanging on and on. I'm barely hanging on. Bag of bones hanging from my telephone. I'd like to rendezvous, but the doctor keeps me all alone. I'm hanging on. I'm hanging on. Barely hanging on. Baby awakes just as dawn breaks. Like Ophelia, she waits in the water and forgets all that's good and great. She's hanging on. She's hanging on. She's barely hanging on. I'm hanging on. I'm hanging on and on. I'm barely hanging on. I'm barely hanging on. Hey, thank you. Lovers went missing. Now you forget how she smiled. Let go a little each day. When I'm listening, I can hear the dead of the night. Let go a little each day. I got one hand on the wheel and the other on the radio dial. ocean, searching through a patterned sky. Let go a little each day, the guide of a light beam, signals flying out, keeping time. Let go a little each day. I got one hand on the wheel and the other on the radio dial. Take me on that part of me I want you. I'll set you free. I'll let you down. Close to me, and now we're stuck in between. Take me on that part of me I want you. I'll set you free. I'll let you down. Close to me, and now we're stuck in between. Lovers went missing, and bit by bit I'm trying, and honest, and wanting, and visions come in the shadows of my bedroom, and the wind blows, capturing anything that is honest. Are you trying? Are you wanting? Are you waiting? One hand on the wheel and the other on the radio dial. And bit by bit I'm trying, and honest, and wanting, and visions come in the shadows of my bedroom, and the wind blows, capturing anything that is honest. Are you trying? Are you wanting? Are you waiting? I got one hand on the wheel and the other on the radio dial. Hey, thank you. Oh my, oh, won't you look at me so high? Oh, she's running around with the rag top down. She says I wanna do right, just not right now. Gonna drive to Atlanta to live out this fantasy, running around with the rag town. Slide your arm around the shoulder of a regimental soldier, and Mama starts pushing that wedding gown. Yeah, you wanna do right, just a nod right now. You wanna do right, just a nod right now. Oh my, oh, would you look at me so high? Oh, she's running around with the rag top down. Says she wants to do right, just a nod right now. She wants to do right, just a nod right now. I know all about it, so you don't have to shout it. I'm gonna straighten it out somehow. Yeah, I wanna do right just enough right now. Oh, I wanna do right just enough right now. Oh my, oh, would you look at me so high? Oh, she's running around with the rag top down. Says she wants to do right just enough right now. She wants to do right just enough right now. Thank you. What makes you think you are an angel? What makes you think you are the one? What makes you think you are an angel? What makes you think you are the one? The land still survives, and the memory cuts just like a knife. So the flood all the cries with the Chatterjee, yeah. Chatterjee, yeah. What makes you think you are an angel? What makes you think you are the one? What makes you think you are an angel? What makes you think you are the one? The sun goes down, Baskerville blues. Sun goes down, Baskerville blues. What makes you think you are an angel? What makes you think you are the one? What makes you think you are an angel? What makes you think you are the one? Thank you. Heard him say to you that it ain't that bad. You never look so sad. And I think they're coming through. In the end, we're glad. We never wanted to ask. And they say that you knew me way back when. I don't know where it all began. Counting every cent, every dollar that you spent. lights on the scene, baby, camp serene. Can't take my eyes off the western jeans. Tricks in boots and the cops in suits. Baby, when we make it, we all lose, we all lose. Counting every cent, every dollar that you spend, to retrace the moments in your mind. I'm wishing on the well, I wish you all farewell. We could have used all the time. Heard him say to you that it ain't that bad. You never look so sad. Heard him say to you that it ain't that bad. You never look so sad. Counting every cent, every dollar that you spend, to retrace the moments in your mind. I'm wishing on the well, I wish you all farewell. We could have used all the time. Hey, thanks so much. I think we've got some more speeches coming up, folks. I'll be back shortly.
We're going to have another round of speakers now. Our first speaker for this session is Charlie Brown. Where's Charlie? Making his way up to the stage here. Charlie is a science educator and retired chemical engineer with over 4 decades of experience in process optimization, air pollution control, and energy systems. Now based in Bellingham, Washington, Charlie shares his deep technical expertise through seminars and short courses on atmospheric science and climate change, including recent talks at Western Washington University, Edmonds College, and the American Institute of Chemical Engineers. So welcome, Charlie.
Just hold it. That's fine. Great. Hi, thank you. Welcome. So, does anyone have any questions about the science of global warming? It's kind of boring. Maybe it's not boring. It shouldn't be, because you have the opportunity to talk with friends, neighbors, family, and if you know more than they do, you can look good. So,
it's all about social status.
I would like to help you know what to say. When somebody says, do you believe in global warming? And they might say, I don't know. And I think that's a funny question to begin with. What do you mean, do you believe in global warming? You should know it's global warming. It's not a matter of belief. This is not a religion. So if you know global warming, you can speak with confidence in a conversation a lot more effectively. So I've got my booth over there, the science of global warming. It's the hard science, probably deeper than you really want to know, but I'll go as deep as you like. Okay, anybody would. For example, CO2 traps heat. You've heard CO2 traps heat, have you not? Most people have. And it's not really a trap. There's no physical trap up there. It's all about radiant energy. And radiant energy, you know more about that than you think. Everyone's had their temperature measured by an infrared device. That's radiant energy. You know about thermal imaging. Okay, so it's radiant energy, and the interesting thing about CO2 is it exists up there in the high atmosphere where it's cold. And you know that cold doesn't radiate very much energy. So the surface, it radiates a lot. You can almost feel the radiant heat off of a hot asphalt today. But the Earth radiates, it gets up to the upper atmosphere, and just in those wavelengths where CO2 interacts, it's cold, it absorbs, and then it emits from a cold temperature. The intensity is low. So the heat doesn't get out to space, it's trapped. It's a cold trap. There, you got it. There are so many myths and misunderstandings. You hear that, oh, it's water vapor, or it's the sun. The sun's a common one. The sun's changing. Well, it's not really. It's changing, yet very slowly. You've heard of ice ages. You know, we used to be under a couple thousand feet of ice here about 20, 30,000 years ago. Well, the sun changed. It's a really slow change. That is not what is causing today's change in global warming. Okay? So the fact that it's happened before doesn't mean that's what's happening now. So that's a myth. I've got a dozen other myths over there that I can go through, anybody's interested. That's what I'm about. That's what I try to promote. I try to promote some interest. I've got another one that is pretty important now, because we're transitioning away from coal. This year is the last year that coal is allowed for power production in the state of Washington. So that'll be gone. That's a good thing. But what do we do to make up that power? We're fortunate that we've got a lot of renewable energy in the state. But we still have a lot of natural gas that's being burned for power generation. What we've learned, we know now, is that methane, you've heard of methane as a high global warming potential? It's a powerful greenhouse gas. Did you know that natural gas is about 90% methane? So when we say about methane warming potential, we're talking about natural gas. So we're going to burn natural gas. And making natural gas, you mine it, you transport it, you get it here, there's some leakage. Methane gets in the atmosphere. And when you consider that, burning natural gas is just about as bad as coal, or perhaps worse, depending on the leak rate. It's on par with coal for global warming. All right? So just converting to natural gas is not such an effective solution. We had an election last November with 4 initiatives on the ballot. 2 of them were related to global warming issues. And as you voted, did you realize that? A lot of people missed the one on natural gas. Both of them were to roll back. Progress has been made, laws have been made, roll back existing laws to help mitigate in the state our emissions, to roll back controls on use of natural gas. I don't think many people realized that that was a global warming issue. Well, one of those initiatives passed, and it turned out it was overturned by Superior Court, but it's gone to the Supreme Court, and the Washington State Supreme Court on appeal, and that's where it sits now. But even if that initiative gets to be upheld, which it may not, I suspect it won't. This is the one where there were multiple issues. They tried about 3 different rollbacks in one package, and that's why it was brought back in Superior Court. If the Supreme Court, State Supreme Court, upholds the Superior Court, you know it'll be back in another form. They'll just do something else. Maybe a different process than an initiative. Or maybe they'll make 3 new initiatives and break the whole thing apart. Here's what I'm getting at. What can you do? You as individuals. And of course there's save energy, cut back on energy consumption. That's great. Cut back on your greenhouse gases, you know that. If you can afford it and it's the right time for you, use an electric vehicle or something. But many things are government regulated. So you vote. And voting is very important. But more important is being an educated voter. So you know what you're voting on. So next to me over at the science booth, we have the Citizens Climate Lobby booth. And that's a great way for getting more involved from that point of view. What can you do? You can contribute, and you do what you can. That's all I've got to say at the moment. But if I can talk your ear off about science, please come on over, and I'll be happy to keep going. Thank you. Do we have a follow-up that I can introduce, or is there going to be? Ah, she's on the way.
On my way. Thank you, Charlie. Give Charlie a round of applause. Thank you so much, Charlie. Our next speaker is Steve Harrell. Steve taught anthropology, one of my favorite subjects, Steve. Anthropology and environmental studies at the University of Washington, Seattle from 1974 to 2017. Let's do the math. That's 43 years. He is the vice chair of the Whatcom County Climate Impact Advisory Committee. Let's welcome Steve Harrell to the stage.
Thank you, Carrie. I tried to bound up the steps. Remember, Joe Biden did that when he was the age I am now. So I hope I last longer than he does. I'd first like to acknowledge our presence here on the historic and ancestral lands and waters of the Coast Salish people, the ancestors of the Lummi Nation, the Nooksack Indian tribe, the Swinomish, and of course their relatives right here across the border in British Columbia, all part of this Salish Sea land and water region. And I want to talk about resilience and planning. And the first thing I want to talk about in resilience and climate is, what do we mean by resilience? Because I think it's one of these words that has gotten broader and broader and meaning more and more to the point where it means almost nothing at all. And I say this as someone who taught seminars about ecosystem resilience for 20 years or so. And what do we mean? If we want to build resilience to climate change, what do we mean? What is this resilience thing that we want to build? Well, ecologists who have developed a field of specifically called resilience ecology, they have a particular definition. The resilience of an ecosystem or a social system or what they sometimes call a social ecological system, because whatever ecosystem we're in, there's people in it, and whatever social system we're in, it's in relationship to other natural features, including other species. Anyway, resilience is the ability of a system to react to a disturbance and continue functioning. Now, what's a disturbance? A disturbance is something that comes from outside the system and disturbs it. A fire is a disturbance, a flood is a disturbance, a policy change is a disturbance. Maybe a speech that I would make somewhere might end up being a disturbance. A disturbance isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's something that challenges a system. And a fire challenges a system, a flood challenges a system, a hurricane challenges a system. And if the system continues to exist and continues to function after this disturbance, then it is resilient. It doesn't mean coming back to the state before the disturbance. This is something that's really important because things change. And particularly with climate change is happening. We can mitigate it, we should mitigate it. If we're really, really lucky, our children will live in a world that's only maybe 2.5 to 3 degrees Celsius warmer than it is now. 1.5 Paris Agreement, this is total, pipe dream. 2 is probably impossible. But anyway, as climate change happens, we're going to have more of a certain kind of disturbances. Particularly, we're going to have more, it's going to get drier in the summer, it's going to get wetter in the winter, it's going to get warmer generally, there's going to be more precipitation in the winter, and it's going to fall as rain rather than snow. We're not going to have a snowpack, and this is going to bring about greater, more frequent and more severe disturbances. So how do we make our system resilient so that when these fires come, when these floods come, when these king tides come, which they're going to come, we can try to mitigate it best we can, but they're going to happen. How do we make our system resilient so it can continue functioning? It can continue serving not just the people, but the other species, even the inanimate, the biophysical features of the system. So I want to take 2 examples of ways in which planning for resilience can happen and is happening already. And I was very fortunate 2 days ago to go on a tour of the Lake Whatcom watershed forest. It was put on by the Lake Whatcom Forest, I always forget the name of it, but Lake Whatcom Watershed Forest Management Program. And we looked at various spots in the forest over by the Lookout Mountain Reserve, and we looked to see, okay, what do we want a forest to be like when there's more of the conditions that create fire because of climate change? There are 3 things that create fire, right? It's weather, fuel, and ignition. Well, all of these things there may be more of. Certainly the weather, how do we reduce the fuel, and so that if a fire, we'll have fewer fires, but if a fire comes, how do we make it resilient? Well, we try to imitate a particular structure of the forest. We try to have a lot of old trees, we have certain breaks, we have a variety of species, we have different kinds of different age groups, different age cohorts of trees and so forth, and we manage the forest in order to create this kind of a landscape. Because if this happens, if the fire happens, and it's going to happen, it's going to be ignited, then how does the system minimize the effects of the fire? Or even if there's a catastrophic fire, how can it come back, even if it doesn't come back to the system beforehand? So this kind of active forest management is one way that we can manage ecosystems for resilience. Another one, of course, has to do with floods. And we're listening to Brian. If any of you heard Brian in the previous group of speakers, he's still over there. You can talk to him. Talking about restoring wetlands. And we're going to have more floods. We're going to have more floods mainly because we're going to have more precipitation in the winter, and more of it's going to be rain, and it's going to come down right away rather than stay in the mountains of snowpack and come down over a longer period of time. So what are the things we can do? Well, there used to be a floodplain where the river would, time and time again, it would flood. And native peoples, you can learn from there the way they used to do it, the way they lived. They allowed the river to do its natural flooding. But what we've done over the past 140 years or so in this area, in the floodplains, we've channeled the rivers, we put up big levees, and the levees, of course, they make the system resilient against a small flood, because the levees are above the ordinary level, and a small flood comes, and then the river doesn't go across, doesn't breach the levee, or it doesn't overflow the levee, then there's resistance against a small flood. But if we have a big flood, then it's less resilient against that than it was before, because there's no place for the water to go except to flood the farms and the houses and the towns. And if you look at Everson and Nooksack, for example, which are built in the floodplain of the Nooksack River, this has happened over and over and over again. Well, it used to happen, but it didn't hurt people. It allowed the system to keep functioning because the system already allowed for that. So this is another example. But the Whatcom County actually is doing some things. One of the things that they can do, and I know I'm taking a lot of time, so I'm going to stop, but one of the things that they can do is setbacks. You can move the levees back and give the river more room when it flows heavily, give it more room to flood. And this is happening in some places. Another thing you can do is certain kinds of water storage, which doesn't involve building dams, but involves building swales, involves building side channels and so forth. So that when the rainfall comes, when the storm comes, it's not necessarily going to be a catastrophic flood. So these are the kind of things that I think we need to start doing. And Brian closed with a poem of his own composition. I'm going to close with a poem, one of my favorite poets. I don't know how many of you are old enough to know about Ogden Nash. But he wrote a poem, Consider the Auk, talking about the great auk, right? Consider the auk, who became extinct because he forgot how to fly and could only walk. Consider man, who may well become extinct because he forgot how to walk and learned to fly before he thinked. We should think more about long-term solutions and about building our systems, both our ecological and our social systems, that it will be resilient when the inevitable happens. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Steve. All right, our next presenter is State Senator Liz Lovelett. As a fifth-generation Anacortes resident, Liz is rooted and invested in the 40th District. She has served as a community leader, a champion of affordable housing, water management, school construction, oil train safety, and improving lives for people in her community. She has served Anacortes as a city council member and regionally as a board member for several organizations. Welcome, Liz, to the stage.
Hello, everybody. It is so nice to see you guys out here in the sunshine on this beautiful day. I'm Liz, and I'm thrilled to be here with you to talk about resiliency and all the incredible collaborative things that we're doing at not only the state level, but how your advocacy and your work in the community is helping lift all of these policies and budget decisions up. So currently I serve on the local government committee, on the transportation committee, and on the energy, environment, and technology committee. This year I took on a couple of new roles though. I'm the deputy majority leader of the Senate, and I am the Senate lead for the Climate Commitment Act budget. budget. And one of the things, just to piggyback on the last conversation from our last presenter, is we were able to put a tremendous amount of funding into floodplains by design. These are the kinds of resiliency investments when we start to look at things holistically and regionally instead of one jurisdiction at a time, when we know that's not how rivers work, that's not how the ocean works. We are all subject to the way Mother Nature is changing over time. And one of the other pieces of policy that I had the privilege to work on the last couple of years that I think is really influential right now as we talk about resiliency is that our local jurisdictions are doing their comprehensive plan documents, which they do every 10 years. That's nothing new. But we fought really hard to get adequate funding in there to make sure that they're now planning for climate change. I live on an island, which means that a huge amount of our infrastructure is at or below sea level. We have jurisdictions that are in floodplains. We have jurisdictions that are adjacent to wildfire-prone areas. And we want to make sure that people have the ability to plan ahead, to look at what kinds of potential natural disasters might be coming our way, and plan better for the future we know we are going to be experiencing. Because there are big changes coming. I mean, I've been here my whole life. I watched the pinto abalone disappear. I watched the starfish waste away. I do a lot of work on orca recovery. And, until we are able to really nurture the planet in the same way that we nurture our communities, we're going to continue to be at odds with nature. And nature's going to win, you guys. That's the way this works. So we have to live in harmony with the rhythms of the weather and the cycles and the seasons so that we can make sure our communities are ready to go in these changing times. And we're really lucky to live in Washington State, a state that really cares about these things, because as we watch our democracy suffering under great duress on a national level, and we're seeing things like the EPA be threatened, we're seeing things like tribal sovereignty get threatened, it's more important than ever that in our communities we are facing these problems together with a clear head and an eye to the future. So the reason I was asked to speak here today is actually about a big bill that we just passed that's going to be implemented over the next 5 years, the Recycling Reform Act, which I'm really proud to have gotten to the finish line. I was just awarded the honor of being the Legislator of the Year from Washington Conservation Action for it, which was a huge honor. And I was part of a very large, very dedicated team of fierce advocates from environmental organizations across the state, of people who work in solid waste management, of people who work in materials collection, folks that are in businesses. We had a surprising turnout of corporate support there at the end. And the reason why is we know our recycling system is broken. I was a city council member when we got the kind of shocking news that we were no longer going to be able to send our recycling overseas. And the reality was where we were sending it wasn't necessarily recycling an end product anyway. And it really reduced both consumer confidence in the products that we're purchasing, but also reduced our confidence that when we put it in that blue bin, that it is going somewhere where it's going to get turned into something new and something usable. And frankly, we were landfilling a lot of things in other countries, and we did a lot of out of sight, out of mind. And that's nothing that the community was doing wrong, it was just the nature of the system. So our new system that we're going to be building in the coming 5 years is going to require extended producer responsibility, meaning the corporations that create the packaging are going to be responsible cradle to grave for where they go. It's not going to be good enough anymore for them to make something and claim it's recyclable. It has to, in fact, be recyclable. There will be oversight from the Department of Ecology and through their peer-to-peer organization to make sure that everybody's on board, that they're doing the right thing. We'll be able to give inspections of where the materials are going to make sure that they're really actually recycling facilities. And I think we have the opportunity to do something that's really near and dear to my heart, which is economic rural development. So we know that there are 500,000 Washingtonians, mostly in the rural parts of the state, that don't have access to recycling at all. If they're really forward thinking and they care about it, they can of course gather it in their homes and take it to the dump. But I was visiting a friend out in Colville, and she has curbside trash service but no recycling, and she was throwing tin cans and cardboard boxes and glass into her trash because there was no place else for it to go. And so for those 500,000 Washingtonians over the next 5 years, we're going to be unrolling curbside service, and for an incredible deal that we managed to broker with the corporations, which is that they're going to pay 90% of the freight of the new system. And that's a really important piece of this program, because right now we know that our municipal governments are pretty cash strapped. They're having a hard time providing services around public safety and libraries and parks and all the things that we love that make our communities strong. And so the more we can soften their budget on the waste collection side of things, the more they're going to be able to put those resources into things like this incredible park that we're standing in right now. And we want them to be able to have that flexibility in their budgeting. And we want the corporations to be responsible for the crap that they make. I mean, it's unacceptable to me that they're making things that there's no logical place for them to go but a landfill. And so now they're going to have to be very forward thinking about the packaging that they use, and they're going to have to pay pretty steep fines if they want to do what we call eco-modulation. So the idea that if you put some junky piece of garbage of Paw Patrol or whatever on top of your juice box, you're going to have to pay extra into the system because that can't be recycled. And we want this system to be durable, we want it to be sustainable, because our communities need that as a foundation of our resiliency. There's few things that are going to have more impact on the short and long term than the way we manage our waste. If you look at just what any particular house produces on a week, it's kind of shocking to see how much stuff is going into the trash. And even when you're really good about washing your recycling and putting it in the bin, you've got your green bin, you're putting your food waste in, it's still a remarkable amount of waste. And this is going to help us really move into the future with a system that is going to be durable, that is going to be cost effective, and is going to be putting the responsibility where it belongs, which is on the corporations that are making the waste in the first place. So I could go on and on and on and on about resiliency stuff. I'm a total wonk about land use and how we actually do the infrastructure that's necessary to do all the things. So it sounds like there's a little Q&A out back. But with that, I'm going to pass it back over, and thanks so much for having me here today.
Thank you so much, Senator Leavitt. All right, and Senator Leavitt will be, as will all the speakers that you've just heard, will be behind the stage in a few minutes for another community conversation session. So certainly join them back there. Lastly, I am going to give a short presentation here. Pulling out my notes. So I did introduce myself at the beginning of the day as Carrie Brausieck, the Executive Director of Kulshan Carbon Trust, who has been the organizer and the host of this amazing event here today. So another round of applause for Kulshan Carbon Trust and all the folks that worked really hard to put this together and bring this to you. I am also the Executive Director of Agroforestry Northwest. This is a new nonprofit in Washington State working for the furtherance and the adoption of agroforestry across the Pacific Northwest. And I'm going to share a little bit about this organization and the work that we do with you. I'm going to start with our vision, why we started this organization in the first place. And as I share the vision with you, listen for the elements within this vision that describe what agroforestry is. We envision a Pacific Northwest with widespread land-based systems that simultaneously increase the production of food, medicines and materials, restore degraded lands, and protect the ecological functions of the unique ecosystems that create our bioregion. All of this we do in the context of restoring human connection to place. So that's the vision. How do we take that vision and translate that into impact in our communities? At Agroforestry Northwest, we have 3 distinct but interconnected initiatives. And we represent these 3 initiatives by the trillium flower. And you will see this flower represented in some of our design and in one of our logos. The trillium flower has been a powerful symbol of many cultures around the world for thousands of years. It's been a symbol for religions, and coastal Salish peoples here used this flower as a powerful medicine and plant ally. We use the trillium flower as a powerful metaphor to express how each one of our initiatives is a key aspect of building resilient land in our bioregion. So I'm going to describe the petals of our flower to you. And as I describe the first petal, I want you to listen for elements that might interest you, or questions you may have, or things you want to learn more about. And think of ways that you might engage with a land use like this. The first petal of our trillium is our agroforestry initiative. That makes sense. It's in our name. It's our bread and butter. And what is agroforestry? Agroforestry basically is the intentional integration of trees and shrubs into crop and animal farming systems. We integrate these things together to realize co-benefits on the land. The benefits of ecological, economic, social, cultural, and production. A recent analysis of over a decade of agroforestry research across the globe has come to the following conclusion. Global estimates suggest that agroforestry is potentially the largest single contribution the agriculture sector can make towards climate change, and is roughly comparable at a global scale to more prominent strategies like reforestation. Why? Because agroforestry builds resilience. It diversifies cropping systems, and it makes those systems resilient to things like drought and other extreme weather events. These practices diversify the foods and the medicines that are available to a community. They diversify economic opportunities for rural landowners. And they do all of this while these systems create habitat, increase biodiversity, and sequester and store carbon long term. How do we take these concepts of agroforestry and turn those into impact in our communities? At Agroforestry Northwest, we work directly with land stewards, offering design and management assistance. We work with partners to foster agroforestry research here in the Pacific Northwest to learn how to utilize these systems better in our bioregion. And we educate and we build awareness with the public and with consumers. So the second petal of our trillium is our biocultural restoration initiative. What is that? Biocultural restoration is the science and the practice of restoring ecosystems, along with restoring human connection to place, ensuring that cultures and communities are regenerated and strengthened along with the lands that link them. Dr. Robin Wall-Kimmerer, the author of Braiding Sweetgrass, has a great quote that really illustrates what biocultural restoration is. She starts by saying that repair of ecosystem structure and function alone is actually insufficient. We do that a lot. We do the things. We plant the trees. We restore the stream side. But she goes on to say that restoration of a respectful, reciprocal relationship to the natural world is also essential for long-term success. And what does an example of that look like in our bioregion? We spend billions in Washington State to restore streamside forests for salmon recovery. Yet critical riparian habitat and our salmon are still in decline. We are investing in the repair and the function of ecosystems. We are doing the things. But we are not investing in the restoration of a respectful and reciprocal relationship with these spaces. How do we take these concepts and translate those into impact within our communities? Agroforestry Northwest is creating models in key watersheds around the Puget Sound, where we provide space for communities to come together, where scientists, restoration specialists, and the public can come, build community, spend time, do the things, plant the trees, remove the invasive species, but also learn how to tend those spaces, to harvest foods and medicines from them, to create community, to come again and again and watch these spaces, how they change over the seasons. We're creating these models to offer this space to try and create that second piece of the equation that will be essential for us to restore our landscapes as we move into the coming decades. The third petal of our flower is our Creative Ecology Initiative. What is creative ecology? It is used in a lot of different contexts, in a lot of different ways, but I'm going to give you the context that we use it in. Creative ecology explores the intersection of the land use and the ecological sciences and infuses that with the arts to inform and to inspire change. This is the power of the arts, the power to transcend our own self-interest, our zoom lens on life, and relate to the world and each other with more integrity, more curiosity, and more wholeheartedness. How are we taking this concept and translating that into impact in our communities? We are working with Salish artists to create artworks that we are installing in public agroforestry spaces along the Snohomish River. We will be holding our first Arts and Ecology event in September, where we will bring together artists, scientists, and the public around the theme of connection to land, to discuss land use, to vision solutions in a different way, and to be creative and to connect through different eyes and through a different lens around these issues, and hopefully to create some inspiration towards action. So the thread that ties each of our petals together is the offered opportunity for relationship to the natural world through how we grow our food, how we restore our lands, and how we imagine together. So thanks, everyone. That concludes our presentations. And we now are going to have another session of community conversations behind the stage, and we are going to invite our musician back to the stage to play some more music for us.